So Cognizant has a dedicated Gen AI function. Why? Well, generative AI is nothing new, and we started this function at the start of this year because we saw an opportunity to really help our clients understand the depth and the opportunity that generative AI specifically could bring. Up to this point, it's been NLP, it's been kind of other types of AI, and we still have those, and we still have unbelievable capabilities in those spaces. So we started this function to fundamentally help our clients to build and to take advantage of generative AI, to create generative applications, to embrace the conversational economy. What's really happening in generative AI is a great question, because actually it kind of has two different sides to it. So generative AI has two different faces, as do most technologies. We have the consumer-facing side, and we have the enterprise-facing side. And actually it's really important to understand the difference between the two. When we're talking about consumer, we're talking about systems that don't necessarily need a lot of transparency, that don't need to fall inside of regulation. But when we're talking about enterprise AI, when we're talking about the AI that organizations are taking advantage of and actually driving a change, not just in their organizations, but globally with, that's where we need to think about AI from an enterprise perspective. We need to think about how we apply transparency, how we apply the ability to understand how the system is making the decision. And this is really where Cognizant's value starts to come into play. So this year we've seen the rise of conversational AI at scale. We've had it before in pockets. I mean, we've all used a chatbot of some description. But some of our research that we did this year showed that although most kind of users of, for example, a banking app or a consumer product app, they would rather interact with a chatbot as a first point of contact, over 98% of that demographic would drop off after 2 or 3 interactions because of the low fidelity in engagement. So the big trend we've seen this year is generative AI actually underpinning these conversational engagements, these conversational experiences, to kind of supercharge them and create this massively higher fidelity interaction. What do we see next year? Well, the sky's the limit, largely. One of the personal areas where I see it being really valuable is in AI personas, in being able to create AIs that represent different members of your organization, different functions of your organization. We're already experimenting with AI being able to approve, AI being able to, feedback really critically on regulated decision making. And that being able to then accelerate the human decision-making process to be able to drive forward, productivity gains, the likes of which we've never seen before. However, this all comes with one very serious point. Here at Cognizant, we have a very pro-human stance on AI. And what we mean by that is we see AI as an accelerator, as an opportunity for organizations to go and branch out into new areas, into new markets, to be able to do more, but not be able to do kind of, job disruption or job destruction. So that's one of the areas where we do feel very passionately that AI is an accelerant. It's a force for change, but it's not a force for kind of replacing the human element, because this year, next, and into 2025, the AI still needs to be used with a human in the loop, and that is still the safest and the most consistent way to use it. How do we at Cognizant kind of help organizations to really embrace generative AI? So it starts with an idea, and it starts with what we call an ideation workshop. Now these are very common, right? We do them all over the place, but they have a slight twist with generative AI. Generative AI itself is what we call non-deterministic. It doesn't necessarily give you the same answer over and over again. So we at Cognizant developed a set of design principles specific for generative AI. We then layer on top our generative AI design pattern, which helps organizations understand the different layers of a generative application. And then lastly, we apply cognitive architecture, which is actually how do we implement these things at scale and rapidly to be able to deliver on the promise of these generative applications. We do that in a design workshop. We generally do it with a very broad set of stakeholders as well. One of the single most important things we found in Gen AI is that it needs to have experts to be able to work with it, help evaluate it, help drive forward that thinking and those answers to be able to have the most successful outcomes. And actually, if I had to look at kind of where we've seen the most success in our organizations, it's been where the business unit has led the project and the IT and data teams have been there to support and bring that kind of governance and tech know-how to the table.